Okay, if you haven't, watch my video Judaism versus Christianity on intro, because that's the introduction to the series that I made, and I made it a long time ago, so you might not have seen it, you might have forgot about it. So if you did, then just watch it for an intro to what I'm going to be doing with the series. Yeah, and I made it a while ago, and I never followed through with the series, because what I did was I went to a couple Christian websites, read their claims about the prophecy, went to a couple Jewish anti-missionary websites, read their response, liked the Jewish response, didn't think it was worth looking into anymore, so I just gave up on the whole thing, never even made any videos about it, except one anti-Christian video, Christians Depart from a Plain and Simple Reading of the Text, which is partially what this video is going to be about, to foreshadow. But anyways, I have made a lot of anti-Christian videos in the past. My most recent one was Christian math, and I made fun of three. Well, that's not important, but I was going against Christianity, and I've made other videos against Christianity. So my subscribers, I'm guessing, generally don't. I doubt I have any mainstream Christian subscribers, and I think I have some messianic subscribers, and most of them probably believe in Judaism in some form or another. So they might not like this series because that's my warning. So if you don't want to hear something that is going to be anti-Christian, then don't watch the series because you're not going to like it. You might unsubscribe because I do this for me, though. It's important to say I don't do this for subscribers. I enjoy making these videos, and hopefully some people get some benefit out of them, but I do this for me. So if you don't like it, I mean, if you don't want to be subscribed to me anymore, that's your decision, but I do this for me, so, and I want to do this series. I think it's important I've basically been slowly going down the path of Judaism for the past 2 years, never looking back, and now here's my chance to kind of look back and slow down and say, well, let's look at both sides now, because I've been looking at the Jewish side slowly for the last 2 years, and now I'm going to look at both sides. So that's my warning to my subscribers, that I'm honestly not going to act like, I'm not going to have any Jewish bias in these videos at all. So there's going to be times when I'm going to sound like a Christian, probably, but that's just me being unbiased, and so in this video particularly, I'm going to sound very unbiased, and that's what I'm planning to do. I'm going to be as unbiased as possible. So I hope you guys enjoy the series, those of you, and I hope maybe some new people will watch, because most of the people who will be interested in this probably aren't my subscribers. Maybe some. So hopefully some of them enjoy it. But anyways, it's a lot of blabbing. Now let's get started. This is part 1, other than the intro. And anyways, I'm going to link to a website, to an article on a website, ChristianThinkTank.com. Over here. Or over here, I'm not sure. And I'm going to link to it because this is a very good article, and this is what I'm going to be kind of basing this whole series on, is what I learned in this article. And I think it's very important for Christians to know if they're going to not just sit in their Christianity and never acknowledge any outside faith, and for any Jew who's going to possibly acknowledge Christianity as a possibility. Or not necessarily a Jew, but a believer in Judaism. Anyone who's considering Christianity and is not sure one way or the other, this is a very important article, and it's very long. I didn't read quite the whole thing. There were certain parts that were dragging on, and I got the gist of it, so I skimmed. But it's pretty long, but it's very interesting. I definitely recommend reading it. That's what I'm basing this video off of. Anyways, there are two main points that I'm going to be making in this video. One, and I get this from this website. So one is that there basically, hang on. Okay. Basically, what we base the so-called Old Testament, or the Tanakh, is the Masoretic text. Today, it's based off the Masoretic text, primarily. And the point that this article makes is that there are textual variants. Now, we pretty much accept the Masoretic text, but especially in the 1st century and in that time, there were many different textual variants, and they didn't necessarily radically disagree, but there were disagreements in, vowels and in word choice and, just various differences. So the point this article makes is that it's important to know that there were textual differences. You see the Qumran community, the Dead Sea Scroll community. There's just different texts. So what it's pointing out is that in in Acts somewhere, Stephen gives a speech and he contradicts the Masoretic text. So if you read in your Bible the Old Testament and the New Testament, so-called, you will see differences, and it points out these differences in Acts. I think it's 15, but I could be wrong. And anyways, so the point is that Stephen could have been using a different text than the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text didn't even exist yet, although it's supposed to be the traditional text and it's supposed to preserve. And sorry, I keep getting phone calls. But it's supposed to preserve, but in theory, Stephen could have been using a different text. So it's not necessarily that he contradicted the Torah, it's that he had a different text that said something different. And so the point this article makes is that's not uncommon for someone to use different texts, and they were all different texts at the time of Jesus. And the second, so when you see the New Testament contradicting the Old Testament, it could be that they were using a different text than what you're using. And yeah, the second point is biblical interpretation. Okay, there are in Judaism 4 different levels of interpretation. Okay, and it's important to note that the rabbis truly do use each of these 4 uses. They don't only use the Peshat, plain and simple reading. Okay, so the rabbis themselves do use different levels of interpretation. So Christians also, in the New Testament, some Christians try to prove Jesus in the New Testament by only using the Peshat. They think that they ignorantly think that only the Peshat is the only level of interpretation. And if that's the case, then Christianity is false. I'll say right now, because you cannot prove Jesus and Christianity. The New Testament itself does not always use the Peshat. So it does not always use the plain and simple reading of the text. And that's important to note for any Christian who's really looking into it. But the point that this article makes, like I said, it's a Christian website, is that other streams of Judaism, first century, including Rabbinic Judaism, also uses these other levels of interpretation. So the point that they make is if the rabbis can use these levels of interpretation, why can't the New Testament writers? And they do use these other types of interpretation. And the point that this article makes is that so do the rabbis. And if that's the case, then maybe these are legitimate levels of interpretation, and it's possible to interpret in these ways. So this is an intro. I'm planning on looking at specific prophecies next, but maybe I'll have some other things. But mostly this is going to be about prophecies, specific prophecies. So leave a comment. Let me know if there's any prophecies you want me to look into or anything like that. Thanks.